Hi everyone, welcome to History 445 here at EOU, the history of post-war Europe. My name is Philip Travis, I'm your professor for this course, and this here is Enzo. And Enzo, who's trying to jump out of my arms, he doesn't like being on camera. Enzo is a little 7-week-old kitten. He's joined our family, and we have dogs and cats, and I'll be introducing you to some of them throughout the term. But I wanted to show you little Enzo here. Look at the camera, Enzo. Look at the camera. Do you want to go down? Enzo wants to go down. But the reason I wanted to show you Enzo is because we've named Enzo, of course, after Enzo Ferrari. And of course, Ferrari is one of those car manufacturer names. It's the most iconic car manufacturer perhaps ever. Maybe only rivaled by one or two other automakers. The Ferrari is perhaps the most iconic automobile that was ever made, and is very much kind of an example of some of the contributions that that Europe in the post-war period has made to the world. In this class, we'll be covering post-war Europe. We'll be looking at the development of Europe since the end of the Second World War until present day. And so some of the things we'll be talking about is how Europe developed some of those very famous automotive manufacturing names like a Ferrari or a BMW or a Mercedes or a Volkswagen and so forth. So in this class, we're going to look at Europe from the end of the Second World War all the way up to present day. And I think it's a subject that is perhaps not examined enough by those of us who study history. I think when we think about studying Europe, perhaps we think first about ancient Greece or ancient Rome, or maybe we think about the medieval period of Europe. Maybe we think about the period of imperialism in the 1700s and the 1800s. Maybe we think about the First World War and the Second World War. And I think a lot of times, many people study the Second World War and then completely fail to study what happened immediately following the Second World War. And so we're going to be examining, particularly beginning with the end of the Second World War, we're going to be examining exactly what happened after the end of the Second World War and how these developments resulted in the creation of modern Europe today. Modern Europe today is, of course, a highly significant place in the world. Today, modern Europe, countries in modern Europe remain #1 tourist destinations or top tourist destinations. France, Spain, Italy, Germany, and Great Britain are all really significant tourist destinations. Europe is associated with being the champion of the best automaking in the world. Germany is regarded as perhaps the pinnacle of Western Europe's economy today, a country that at one time was divided between East and West. Today, Europe is associated with some of the most effective democracies in the world. Indeed, today, Europe is also associated with a number of different experiments with social democracy and universal health care and these types of things. So we're going to be examining this development since the end of the Second World War. We'll be looking at Europe and how Europe is rebuilt from the total destruction of the Second World War, a conflict that cost upwards of 50 million lives. It left cities in rubble. It caused huge population displacements, massive amounts of civilian deaths. We'll be examining how Europe was rebuilt after this. And not only how Europe was rebuilt after this, how Europe has over Europeans in places like Germany or France, for example, how they have dealt with the legacy of horrifying events like the Holocaust in the decades following the Second World War. We're going to look at the division of Europe during the Cold War, the role of the United States, the role of the Soviet Union. Look at how Germany was divided and how Europe saw two kind of spheres of different socioeconomic and political realities develop. We're going to look at the process of decolonization, the process whereby the European empires finally were dismantled, and in some cases and in processes that were very, very violent. We'll be looking at the French Indochina War, a precursor to the Vietnam War, the American Vietnam War, as one example of that. We're going to look at the social revolution in the 1960s, the formation of social democracy in Europe. We're going to look at a terrorism crisis in Europe. We're going to look at the collapse of countries like Yugoslavia and the Soviet Union, and the ramifications for this in the development of modern Europe today. So we have a lot of things to talk about, and things that are highly significant, and items that remain a current and pertinent part of the conversations of current events on a daily basis. So it should be a pretty fascinating and interesting course. I'm really excited for it. Make sure, this is our welcome announcement. Every week I'm going to do an announcement like this. Every week we have a video announcement. And starting next week, I'm going to start an extra credit activity associated with these announcements. So make sure you're watching these announcements. I'll give you more details next week. But watch these announcements and watch them at the beginning of the week. And the extra credit will involve you watching these announcements no later than Wednesday, the end of the day on Wednesday, midnight on Wednesday, and emailing me a historical factoid. And for each one of those, you're going to receive a point, a bonus point towards a test score at the end of the term. So be watching these announcements each week. Every week I also provide a video lecture that I record myself, and it's pertinent and related to some aspect of the subject that we're covering in the class. Our textbook is this right here. It's a huge book, but it's a great book by Tony Jute called Postwar. There's also some supplemental pieces that I'm going to have you read, some articles, some chapters from other books that I think do a very good job handling certain areas that I'm going to have you read as well. In the class, week by week, you should follow the modules on a week-by-week basis. So this class progresses each week at a time. I don't open the whole class up at once. Instead, you'll complete week 1, and then on the Sunday before the next week starts, I open the second week, and so on and so forth. I'll provide some study guides for things like the exams, hints really on what the essays will be like on the exam, and we'll talk more about that in future class weeks. In addition to the way you would follow this in modules, remember that you have a tab for finding the syllabus. All pertinent information is in there. And please email me if you have any questions about anything in the class. I try to put the students first always, and I care about all of you very much, and I want you to all succeed in the class. So if there's any concerns, if anything's not clear, make sure you reach out to me and ask me questions. And I check my email all the time. And if you need to arrange like a phone conversation or something at any point, please let me know. The last couple of things. Remember, so the video lectures that I provide, that material is also relevant to the test. So make sure you're not only reading the assigned material, but watch those video lectures and watch these opening announcements each week and watch them early. Sometimes in these announcements I'll give you tips about things that are on the tests, or things that will be covered during the week, or information on papers and these types of things. In this class you write one major research paper. It's 6 to 9 pages. And during week 5, I believe it's week 5, I have it scheduled, you're going to submit a topic. And you're going to give me a topic, a thesis statement, and a list of 6 academic sources that you think you will be using in writing the paper. There's also a film review paper. It's a page and a half. In week 2, I'm going to have you watch a film from 1946. And I want you to write a short page and a half review about this European film and what you believe it says about Europe in the immediate aftermath of the Second World War and the atrocities associated with it. There's 2 tests. There's a midterm and a final. There's also a series of quizzes. This week, week 1, we have a map quiz. And the map quiz, you're not going to be able to find all of the answers for the map quiz in your book. Instead, you should use Google and do a Google search for the area so you can locate these items on the maps in the quiz. The idea here is I just want you to become familiarized with the geography of Europe. So there'll be a series of quizzes as well. I also have a couple of documentary films we'll be watching in the class. So I think this is going to be a very fun class. It's going to be a really interesting class. We're going to be looking at important developments, the formation of NATO, the European Union, the collapse of the Soviet Union, all kinds of very fascinating developments in the history of post-war Europe that I think sometimes are somewhat forgotten, but should be remembered because they provide us with some very pertinent examples into understanding the development of the modern world and of modern Europe today. So I hope that's pretty clear. Let me know if you have any questions, and start by looking through the Getting Started modules, and after that, the first week will open up. Complete the items in the first week in the modules area, and I'll see you in the discussion forum. Every week we have a graded discussion forum. And on the graded discussion forum, I want people to post or reply at least once before Thursday or by Thursday. And then I want to see 2 days total of activity with 1 post and 2 replies. That's what I'm looking for. I want your activity to start in the discussion forum no later than Thursday. And overall, I want to see substantial activity with 1 post, 2 replies over 2 separate days. Make sure in the discussion forum, last bit, and then I'll end this. I want to make sure that in the discussion forum, we're using the materials assigned for class, that we're engaging those materials, and that we're engaging our fellow classmates in a respectful way. So the discussion forum is meant to be kind of an interactive and active discussion. So I'll see you in the discussion forum this week, and let me know if you have any questions, and let's have a great week.